caught that. Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll call a vote. Thank you, Mrs. Scully. Just to receive and refer. Councillor Thompson? Thank you. That carries. Next delegation, Dr. Sandra Sangster, representing Regency Acres Ratepayers Association, Aurora Heights Ratepayers Association, and Town Park Area Residents Ratepayers Association regarding item S1R5. I'll remind you have 5 minutes, Ms. Sangster.
Okay, thank you. Sandra Sangster, 46 Holman Crescent. Last week during open forum, we advised council that there are unexplained discrepancies in key measures used to define the characteristics of the 4 study areas, comparing the June 4 staff report and the March consultants report. We also learned that the largest property in the analysis for the town park is a 9-unit purpose-built apartment. The inclusion of this property and the data discrepancies call into question the accuracy of the data set upon which the recommendations for stable neighborhood zoning are based. That said, we are prepared to move forward despite these flaws. In our May 28th delegation, we argued that the GFA recommendations must be based on a weighted average to take into account the drastic differences in the number of dwellings in each of the 4 study areas, and the fact that temperance homes have a much larger GFA. The table that we've shown there shows you, and this is data from the town, the number of dwellings in each area, 75 in Temperance Street. That area represents 3.6% of the total study population of homes. What has happened in the analysis is that pie chart on the left shows you how each area has been treated. Each area has been counted as if it was 25% of the data, when in reality, temperance is 3.6%. Given Council's January decision to have one set of rules for all 4 areas, it is vital that the recommendations proportionately represent the characteristics of the 4 areas. The only way to do this is to use a weighted average. An unweighted average does 2 things. Number 1, it gives the tiny pocket of 75 homes on Temperance Street a disproportionate influence over the recommended GFA. Number 2, it means that the characteristics of the remaining 2,036 homes actually count for less in determining the outcome. If you could show the second chart. The chart you see now shows the difference in GFA for the pocket of 75 homes on Temperance Street compared to the GFA for the other 3 areas. The temperance homes have much larger GFA regardless of whether you look at the averages from the March consultants report, and those are shown in column 3, where you can see 307 square meters for Temperance. Aurora Heights is 202 square meters. Town Park is in between. We also got data from the town staff report in June about the median GFAs, and those are shown in column 4. As you can again see, Temperance is much larger than any of the others, with Regency and Aurora Heights being 164 and 169 square meters. Column 5 shows you from the consultant's Marsh report the GFAs using the special formula that he created for this study of 427 for Temperance and much smaller numbers, as you can see, for the remaining areas. So the whole question is, how do you calculate a weighted average? Well, using the information in that table, step 1, you take the percentage of the sample of dwellings that each study area represents. That's in column 2. Step 2 is you multiply the consultant's GFA numbers for that same area using column 5 by that percentage. The result is shown in column 6 for each area. You then add up the numbers in column 6 to get the weighted average recommended GFA. The weighted result using the consultant's March GFA numbers for each area is actually 350 square meters or 3,767 square feet. The unweighted average, which treats the 75 houses on Temperance as if they were 25% of the sample, is 371 square meters or 3,993 square feet. This is a significant difference of 226 square feet. It matters, especially when you consider that zoning variance applications can add a significant square footage on top of what the bylaw allows. In conclusion, last January, Council decided on a one-size-fits-all approach, despite repeated comments from our elected officials before and after the election about the uniqueness of these areas and the importance of preserving that unique character. The unweighted method used to determine the recommended GFA really adds insult to injury. The study area includes 2,111 dwellings, only 3.6% are on temperance, and yet the final recommendation gives temperance the same weight as the other areas. We understand that study has always been more than a statistical exercise. Decisions were made to include new builds and to include temperance. The consultant created a customized methodology. We understand that these are decisions of policy and scope. However, appropriately weighting each area when determining GFA is a statistical issue, pure and simple. Any stats prof will tell you so in a context such as this, where the sample sizes are so discrepant. It is more than just a matter of opinion. It is a matter of using correct mathematical procedure. I know I taught statistics to undergraduates when I did my PhD. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Sangster. Hold applause, everyone, please. Can I get a motion to receive and refer? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Gartner. Comments or questions for the delegate? Seeing none. Call the... Councillor Gartner.
Thank you, Ms. Sangster, for doing all of this. Whoops. I'd just like to thank you very much for doing all of this work to try and come up with a recommendation for council. So what your recommendation is to use the weighted average as calculated in column 6 to determine the maximum square footage. Thank you. Just wanted to be clear on that. I must say it is rather shocking when you see the pie chart and you see the sliver that represents temperance and that it would be given the same importance as the other areas.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to say thank you to Sandra and to every resident here tonight and not here, because your passion, your efforts have got us here. We may not be perfect and on the mark, but all this progress is because of your heart and soul into this. And I do believe at the end of the day, we're going to be preventing a lot of what we have seen happen that have been beyond our control, unfortunately, because we didn't get here where we should have been a long time ago. So I just wanted to thank you very much. Your detailed analysis is an eye-opener as well for me. And it really leads me to think about what we do after this. And do we leave it? Do we continue? What do we do? But we need to do something quick to stop what we've seen happen to our neighborhoods. So thank you again very much for your heart and your passion. It means a lot to me and all of us here.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you just let us know exactly who you represent in the opinions that you brought forward?
We represent
Dr. Sangster.
We represent the Regency Acres, Aurora Heights, and the Town Park Ratepayers Associations. We've had ongoing meetings with the executive members of, we collectively have met numerous times to discuss the issues, the proposals, the consultants' reports, the staff reports, and so forth.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Sandra, thank you so much for coming to the podium and giving us all this information week over week. And every time we've had a planning meeting, public consultation, whatever it is, I know you guys have done a lot of hard work and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and getting to this point. And I really, truly hope we can come to some sort of resolution to meet in the middle and kind of get out of this what we all want. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, thank you, Ms. Sangster. Thank you. I'll call the vote. That carries. Just before I move to the consent agenda, Council, I wanted to welcome our new Director of Finance, Rachel Rachel Wainwright Van Kessel. Sorry, it's very long. I got to apologize, Rachel. She comes to us from York Region, where they've been there for 10 years, and also from the private sector. And so we're looking forward to working with you through all of our budget and our finance issues. And we know that we're going to be able to provide more efficiencies for our residents with the work that you're going to be providing us, the council. So thank you for joining us, and we welcome you to the town of Aurora. So now move to consent agenda, council. C1, C2, C3. Are there any comments or questions on those ones? Anyone like to pull any of those, or can I get a motion to approve C1 to C3? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Thompson. I'll call the vote. That carries. Standing committee reports. Anyone like to pull any comments, questions? What? Okay. I'm assuming R1 and R5 together? Okay. Any other ones? So can I get a motion to approve the remaining items on the standing committee reports? Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Thompson. Call the vote. That carries. So we'll move to the regular agenda. We'll deal with S1, R1, and R5. Councillor Thompson, you have a question?
Member Marcus, I know that the vast member of the audience are here for stable neighborhoods in R1. I think the conversation will be much lengthier than the zoning application that the delegates spoke to. I'd like to ask council's indulgence to move that one forward. I just think it'll be quicker rather than make him wait for the full conversation around stable neighborhoods. So I'll put a motion forward to move the zoning R1 from the regular agenda forward and deal with it now.
Councillor Humphrey, second. I'll just ask for a hand vote on that. All those in favor, move that forward. Opposed? That carries. All right, we'll deal with R1 first. Someone like to put that on the floor? Councillor Kim, second by Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions on this? Councillor Thompson.
Just briefly, you know, we've seen the delegate comment. I think it just reminds me of some of the other split levels that we've had where it's been, 2 stories in the front, 3 stories in the back, based upon the visuals that we've all been provided by. It's comforting to see that really what we're talking about is if you're standing at the front door, it's 9 meters in the back, but yet the back of the property slopes down to 12 meters. And that's where some of the challenge has been. But perhaps through you to Mr. Waters, could you provide a little additional explanation of why it's here before us and some of the issues that occurred, even though you weren't here? I'm sure you've looked into it.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that in September of 2018, Council did endorse the zoning bylaw as the illustration of the townhouses was presented tonight. There are challenges regarding the site with regards to the grade. You can't level the site in its entirety because of the drainage. There's also an environmental feature at the back of the property as well. So as the delegate had specifically stated, it's under 10 meters at the front of the property, at the building, but as you slope down because of the walkout basement, it increases to 12 meters. Actually, the difference in height is anywhere from 1.1 meter to 2.6 meter, depending on the grade. And I should also note that there are no neighbors behind the property. I believe that there is a storm pond behind there, and there's also the municipal park that's behind there with some ball fields.
Councillor Thompson? Thank you. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on the neighbors, we certainly do have neighbors to the north. And through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Waters, would you be able to tell us what's on to the south? Doesn't have it in the report.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there's a Salvation Army facility. I'm not sure if it's a shelter or a homeless
Community Center.
community center. I apologize, community center to the south.
Thank you. So we do have neighbors to the left on Badge Row. I would like to refer council to page 13. Could be page 13 or page 14. And this is, I'm asking for that in relation to the recommendation 2B. The applicant is asking not only for the building height to be 12.6 meters, they're also asking that in calculating the height of a building, any construction used as an ornament, railing, stair enclosure, access, storage enclosure, or rooftop amenity shall be allowed to project above the maximum building by a height of maximum 2.2 meters. So actually the applicant is asking for the 10 to go to 12.6 meters, and on top of that 2.2 meters. So if you look at one of those pages that I was referring to, it's a little hard to see. You can see a dark horizontal line on top of each of the townhouses. That actually is ghosted because it doesn't show you that it is a small building that's on top of there. That's the 2.2 meters being asked for. And that building will be enclosed. It will house storage, and I'm guessing a stairway to get up to the roof. And if you look carefully, I have it on the larger drawings that Linda has. I don't know if she has to put it on. But if you're looking at the area, the face where there's the garage, that actually brings it pretty close to a 4-story structure. And if you look at the other elevation, which shows the back walkout, that actually is 4 stories. And if you add the rooftop, that makes it 5 stories. This is not at all in keeping with our official plan. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about, the ghosting? Where we can't actually see the outline of the structure on the rooftop? Linda, maybe you could put that on. It doesn't show it much clearer, but it's larger, so it may help.
So, Councillor, which ones are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking that horizontal black block. That's actually one wall of a structure. That structure has 3 other walls that go to it, but it's not shown in this diagram. That's what's called ghosting. You can't really see the outline of the structure there. That is completely against anything we've ever done in Aurora. It's against our zoning bylaw. It may be done in other places, but it's certainly, we do allow air conditioning units on roofs, but we don't allow a structure like this. And each one of these townhouses is going to have a structure of its own. So I certainly don't think, as a council, we can allow the recommendation that says anything from ornaments to rooftop structures be allowed. we're actually giving, if we do that, we're giving the 12.6 meters and another 2.2 meters. That's just not acceptable with respect to our planning.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify a little bit of the height, because I think that's where Councillor Gardner is getting her concerns from. So page 4 of 15, the applicant is requesting a minor revision of an increased maximum building height from 10 meters to 12.6 due to grading constraints. I just thought, just to clarify through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, I thought I heard the applicant say that it was 9.1 meters, but I'm noticing here it says 10 meters maximum permitted. Oh, compliant, meaning 10 meters and under? Is that what the statement means? Oh, okay. And the only reason it looks, to Councillor Gardner's concerns, it's the grading, I guess, from the back end of the buildings that appears a lot taller. Can you just sort of help us understand that? And what are those ghost built pieces up there?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just looking for the image of, I think if you go to page 9 of 15 in your report, item R1, the best way I can describe it is the east-west road that runs off of Leslie.
Yeah.
So if I can just describe it for you this way, there are 9.1 meters at the front, and then as the land slopes down, the height increases because of the grade.
Okay.
Okay, so they're always 9.1, but if you take the measurement from the rear, it results in an increase in the height if you average it. Yes. In terms of the structure on the top, it is a storage area. There's a stairway that runs up there with some sliding doors and a storage area, and it's intended, and it's a rooftop patio. So
rooftop
if you
patios.
have furniture, patio furniture or something, you need some place to store it in the wintertime. And so the builder has decided to put that storage unit on top.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of the structure.
That's
Councillor Humphreys.
great. Thank you. And that helps me. Thank you.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Waters, just on that storage, what is it made of, and why wouldn't that be part of the calculation on the overall height? And what's the size of that?
Mr. Waters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure of what materials would be used for that. It would have to be according to the building code. My understanding, it's not part of the height calculation itself. It's a separate height, item for calculation according to our zoning people.
Councillor Gallo.
To you, Mr. Mayor, do you know why we wouldn't calculate that, and do you know the size of them?
Mr. Waters.
I don't know the dimensions of the storage unit itself. There are some plans that actually show it that we have in the office, but I don't have those with me at the moment.
Councillor Gallo.
If there's a stair going up there, clearly it's going to be climatized. It's like an interior room, roofed, all of that. So I'm just trying to understand why we wouldn't take that into consideration with the overall height. Just going on the elevations here, they certainly don't look small, almost the width of each unit, but it's very high, or half the width if each have half of it. I'm just unclear as to why we don't, not on like a roof, take that into consideration when we're establishing the height. I get the slope, and I get it if we're calculating the height based on an average grade. I understand all that, but it's this rooftop that's perplexing, and I'm not sure I have a good understanding of why we're not calculating that, particularly if the structure is at least half the width of each one of those units.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. We'll go to Councillor Kim for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, do any other buildings or townhomes have some sort of structure, whether it be storage structure or structure for boilers or kind of machines to kind of run elevators? Are there such structures on roofs currently?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It really depends on the type of townhouse being developed. In this case, they are proposing a storage area on top of the dwelling for storage, because it's a roof, it's a patio, and so I guess it's for the convenience of the end user, so that they have an area where they can store their patio furniture. I'm not aware of, I've never seen this before. I believe this is something similar that's been used or been built in Toronto. I think this developer has built similar product in Toronto in that location, but I've never seen it in Aurora so far.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And in other municipalities where these structures exist, are these counting towards the number of stories?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe they're counted.
Sorry, in their height calculations. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just confirm that they're not counted as floors or stories, but they may be included as height. I'm not aware of that. I can't respond with an answer at this point.
Okay.
Councillor Kim?
Great, thank you. And my final question is, do you know offhand in terms of what percentage of the rooftop space or the footprint that this structure has?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have that number off the top. I've seen a drawing. It is not that extensive. It's essentially there for a stairwell and to provide for a small storage area for patio furniture.
Councillor Kim?
Yes, thank you. And I've seen these types of structures on roofs before, whether they were for storage or in some cases as a stairwell to get to the rooftop patio. And I think, our height, our number of floors or whatever, I think the main reason for that is just the massing of the building, and also to prevent, so not to ensure that the neighboring property has sufficient sunlight. So there's, we talk about angular plane in previous discussions on other projects. So I'm fine with this. Perhaps maybe we can tighten up our language in the future in terms of rooftop structures. But for now, I don't see this being a distraction to neighboring homes, and for now, I don't see this being a big enough structure to be added to the height limitations.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kim, for asking so many questions, because it was quite a few there that I was going to ask. But one question I had, do we not have existing homes at Bayview and Wellington that already have this similar design?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there are similar homes that are on the north side of Wellington, across from the Magna lands. I don't believe they're very similar in terms of the contemporary style, the square, massing and what have you. I'm not aware of them having storage units on the rooftops. I don't even know if they even have rooftops. But if that development does have different heights, if you look at it, they're not all uniform in terms of the front facades. They do have varying heights, and a little different in terms of the front facade, in terms of how it comes out from the garage as well.
Councillor Gilliland?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I was thinking of the homes that were on the corner, and I believe they're actually 4 stories, if I'm not mistaken. And I actually think that they may actually have a rooftop patio. Do you have any recollection of that? They do? Okay. All right, I was just wanting to confirm that with you if that was the case, because that's what I had recollect, that there was homes that currently have some similar kind of height and grading, because I know that they actually have a grading variance with going down to Wellington, but it goes a lot much higher on the street front as well. So I just wanted to confirm if that was correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. Through to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, have you had a chance to look back to the original application that was before council in September of 2018?
Mr. Waters?
I've looked at the drawings and elevations from that time frame.
So I have the report in front of me, and the same images that are being shown now appear to me to be the exact same images that were in that report in September, including this image before us, which has these rooftop structures. And so, you know, I guess I want to point out that council approved this with these rooftop structures back in September. And so I don't remember the total conversation at that time, but there was no concern at that point in time with these additional structures.
Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do remember the conversation at that time, and there was no mention of rooftop structures for storage in a stairwell. If I'm wrong, I'd like to know that from Councillor Thompson. It says that, no, the picture is, but is the verbiage, is the recommendation. And maybe one of the reasons that we didn't notice it doesn't really look like anything. It just looks like, it doesn't look like anything. I understand it's for the convenience of the residents, but we have bylaws that do not allow structures like this. I would like to see the bylaw that says we allow structures like this. We don't, and we don't have any. And if it's not in our zoning permissions and we allow it, what kind of a precedent are we setting? It's just wrong. You know, we've already given a lot here. And to add this to the mix when it's not allowed in our zoning bylaws, I don't see how we can do it.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. I just have one question, Mr. Waters. If this gets refused tonight, what happens?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the applicant is in a position of appealing from a non-decision anyways, because council has not made a decision within the time frame. But if the recommendations are refused, the applicant will be in a position to appeal to the LPAT.
And would this fall under the new Bill 108 that's been received royal assent?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe it would be on the old system because it would be grandfathered is what I understand, but we're still waiting for the regulations.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gallo, just at the last second.
Yeah, sorry. Just to clarify that, we've passed the deadline. Is that what I heard? So regardless, the door is opening. Thank you.
I will call the vote using your tabulators. That carries. We will move to S1, R1, and R5. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Thompson. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I call the vote. Oh, All of a sudden, they're all coming in. Councillor Gardner.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't know why I have to push my button first all the time. You were calling the vote.
Yeah, the way I look at it is if you'd like to speak, it shouldn't matter whether you speak first or last.
Cute. I would like to make the amendment that was suggested by the resident, the delegation, that's the residents are in favor of. The actual amendment would be that the use of the weighted averages as illustrated in the chart presented. I don't know if that chart can go back up. I don't have a copy of it. But to use the weighted averages as illustrated in the chart that was presented by the delegate tonight, and to take that square footage down, it's going down by very little.
Do you have the number, Councillor?
Yes, I'm sorry, if the delegate could just put it on the overhead, that would be great. Thank you.
Councillor, I'll save you some time. The number's 3,767 square feet.
That would be my amendment.
Thank you. Do I get a seconder for that? Councillor Humphreys. Waiting to get it on the floor? On the screen? Thank you. Would you like to speak to the amendment, Councillor Gardner? One sec. I'll get it for you. Go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor.
I think the delegate has presented the rationale for this. It just doesn't make sense to take an area that is so small and give it the same weight as the other areas. And we saw from the pie chart that it's a tiny little slice of 75 homes, and yet we're going to give it the same weight as the others. And it actually turns out to be 3.6%. Town Park is 19.5. Regency is 39.7, and Aurora Heights is 37.3. How can we give 75 homes this kind of importance? This is such a diverse area. We weren't able to do it through our planning process. We weren't able to look at all of the individual areas. This is, to me, a very small thing that they're asking for. How much time do I have left? This bylaw that council is about to pass will have effects on hundreds, thousands of residents. And as was said last week at the table, we have to uphold our OP, and we have to respect the intent of compatible. Residents wanting to protect the quality of the character of their neighborhood, their quality of life, have been coming here for so many months. For all of those meetings, they asked for decreases in height, decreases in size. They were just asking for protections that they felt were suitable for their neighborhoods. None of that is going to be reflected in our bylaw. It seems to me that they are now asking for one very small accommodation to use the weighted averages, so that a neighborhood of 75 homes will not have the same statistical impact as a neighborhood of 800. it makes sense to me. It's justifiable. Please don't deny them this small compromise.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Humphreys, to the amendment.
Sure. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with Councillor Gardner. It's a small adjustment, and it absolutely makes statistical sense in terms of what we saw presented this evening. And I feel confident through our discussions last meeting with Mr. Waters saying that this is something that would not have to come back to public planning and would not be challenged in the future due to the the minor change of it and the significance. But overall, it just helps residents just make more sense of what's before them. And I'm just looking forward to moving forward tonight. So hopefully this will pass. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just having a hard time with the number that we're looking at in the motion. This number was given by a delegate who had put together a chart. I'm not saying that they're right or wrong, but I also have another chart that was provided by Mr. Waters last week, which is 357.6. So it makes it even different. There is a difference in the numbers. Overall, I'm looking at this, and if we're really looking at the numbers being presented by the planner, it's really 303,983. And if I were to take that number with the 357.6, we're really talking about 133 square feet. If we actually divided that by 2, just for sake of argument, we're talking about 66 square feet on a 2-4-story home. I don't know, I just feel like we have to suggest that we've given the residents nothing on this report. I don't think is very fair. There has been a lot in this report that has been brought forward. There has been a reduction of 33% on the ability to build a home in Regency Acres on some properties. That is a lot. And I think that we are working with the ratepayers and we are working with the residents. And we need to also remember there are some people who feel these restrictions aren't enough. And I just don't want to get caught up on the 66 square feet that we're being presented with, this change. There's a number of 3,767 square feet. I have a number here at 3,849. Going back and forth with some of the inconsistent numbers, I just feel like we're not really going to find that magic sweet spot, that magic number that's going to be exact for everybody to agree with. And I just feel like this motion is really not accurate to what we're trying to achieve today. I think we have a report in front of us today, and I think that's something that we should consider.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I would echo Councillor Gilliland's comments. I think that, as we well know, there have been a lot of different viewpoints on this particular issue. There are some that would like to see further reductions. There are some, I'm sure, that are content with what's before us, and there are some that are not. The community is divided in their opinions. So there's a majority view, there's a minority view, but regardless, whatever council decides on the number, I would agree that it is a compromise. It may not satisfy everybody within the community, but we will have accomplished something. When this issue first started, there was great concerns about some of the homes that were 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. This, as Councillor Gilliland mentioned, the zoning bylaw amendment as initially put forward would reduce it by 33%. So that is something. I understand that there are concerns about the methodology around the weighted average versus another approach, but at the end of the day, council's free to pick any number they want. For me, I'm comfortable in the number that was presented.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, throughout the last couple of weeks and a couple of meetings and several weeks, I've looked at the methodology, and certainly Ms. Sangster is a very intelligent and thoughtful person, and she's laid out her methodology quite plain and clear. It's easy to understand, and I understand the methodology, and it makes perfect sense. And I understand, Councillor Gardner's perspective, in that, these residents here tonight and those who are not here, they've put many hours, many days and weeks into putting an argument forth for their perspective, and I respect that. And it's not a matter of whether you agree or not. But there's other, half of the residents in the stable neighborhoods who are not here today, and they have a different perspective as well. So in terms of giving the residents this, they only want this. I mean, there's residents on all sides, so I can't say I want to give residents on this side this and residents on that side something else. And I'm quite comfortable with the number that the consultant gave us, and as it's been mentioned, whether it's 66 square feet or 200 square feet, it's not that much. There's on the other side of the line where some residents wanted 5, 6, 7,000 square feet, and then on the other there's those who wanted limited to 2,000, 3,000. I don't know what that ideal number is, and right now we're just cutting hairs in terms of this amount. And again, I don't disagree with the methodology; it makes perfect sense. But I think by moving it even slightly to Councillor Gardner's recommendations, I don't want there to be any kind of feeling out there that council's siding one side or the other. I think we've come up with a number that an external consultant has come out with, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I spoke last week, or I asked the consultant, not that I challenged him, but somewhat challenged him in terms of why he would have kept some of the anomalies in and not removed them. That to us seemed pretty obvious if the end goal is to figure out a number, and we're trying to represent the community, the majority of what's built there. And in thinking afterwards, I don't necessarily think that it was his responsibility to remove subjectively any buildings, either the 6,000 square foot homes or the 9-unit buildings. I think he did his job. For the most part, I think he did his job. I think the onus is on us to look at the neighborhood, and we know it best to determine what are the outliers, what number really signifies the community, and I don't know how anyone could suggest that leaving temperance in there isn't skewing the number. I mean, the math is the math. Does either 60 or 70 square feet per floor make a big difference? Let's face it, there's probably a good chance this is going to go to the OMB, I guess, and be challenged anyway. I hope it's not, all this work is not for naught. But I'm in support of this simply because it does make sense. I mean, I'll be honest, and I'm not going to do it, but I would have had even a second round at this and really dig deep in terms of what are those outliers and identify them. And we are kind of going around the edges in terms of that. I suspect, as I did last week, if there were more outliers, they would have come up and to the podium and let us know. But I think we're taking a really good stab at this, and this to me makes a lot of sense, and I'll be supporting it. The rest of the resolution, I assume, is still on the floor, and we'll have an opportunity to tweak that if we can.
We're just dealing with the amendment right now, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you. We haven't given the residents anything they wanted. They asked for a reduction in the height to less than 10 meters.
Counselor,
No, I have
speaking to the
to,
amendment.
no, I'm speaking to what was said at the table.
But
It
speaking
has,
to the
I'm sorry,
amendment.
it
You can
has,
speak to it during the regular motion when we get back to it.
but it's part of the amendment.
The amendment is speaking to the 3,767 square feet be the maximum allowed in the stable neighborhood study.
This, allowing this is not providing, if we don't at least give a nod to the residents. They have not received any accommodations from council that they asked for, including height, measurement of height, decreased percentage of lot. I could go on. We have not given them anything that they have asked for at this podium. And most of us were sitting around this table, so they know what they asked for. And now they're asking for something very small that makes complete sense. It really can't be argued with. And with respect to, we don't know what half of the neighborhood wants and what the other half wants. All I know is that this group of people came to 10 meetings through 18 months and asked us for protection. We did not give it to them. This is a very small concession, and I sincerely hope that council will give this to them.
Call the vote on the amendment. That fails. Back to the main motion. Councillor Humphreys. Oh, Councillor Gardner, you still have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
Well, there have been a lot of things I haven't understood about this process to make our zoning bylaws reflect our official plan. You know, it seems so easy. It seems like it just should have happened so easily. The residents should not have had to fight for this. The planning department should have brought it forward when we looked at our comprehensive zoning bylaw. That didn't happen. The residents took it on. Why did it take so long to get the report to council? Why do we have charts that say two different things and we don't have any explanation for our consultant? Why is council expected to make a decision when they don't have the explanation of how the consultant came up to this conclusion? Council needs complete and transparent information. We didn't have that. We're now at the very end of this chain, and this decision will affect thousands of residents and the quality of a lot of lives. It's going to change the face of our community. And if I was the residents, I would be saying, go back to the drawing board, look at all of the neighborhoods separately. Do it right. This is a change that is going to happen forever to this town. And the residents are sitting here and we don't give them one small concession. I say shame on this council. And shame on the whole process that has put so many roadblocks in the way of these residents. You see, we have a very small group here tonight, and that's because most of the residents have given up. They're frustrated, and I will remind you that many of us on council during the election said we would protect these residents. We have not provided them with one protection that they asked for. Again, shame on us.
Councillor Humphreys.
All right. I just, through you, Mr. Mayor, a couple things. And we can still adjust this motion. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I'd like to go to the, I know we talked about this last council meeting. I'm still not in favor of the urban design guidelines. I'm worried about that. I know that I don't want staff to go back and do all this work to come back, and I still won't support it. I know we put something like this in place to stop as much as we could between this moment of passing this tonight and in between all the months and years before to try to protect our neighborhoods as much as possible. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about leaving this in staff's hands. So for me, I'd like to take this off. Is it possible to do that now, Mr. Mayor? Or do you prefer to vote, have everyone vote that way?
You can vote separately.
Separately? Okay. I'll call to vote separately again. I'm still really worried about this. The other thing I'd like to know if we can do at this moment is, I know we spoke briefly last, and this might not be the right time, Mr. Mayor, but about removing some areas that have come forward. There's 2 outliers in this area, and I don't know if this is the right time to speak to it. Maybe I'll wait to hear more discussion around the table and then come back to me on that if no one else brings it forward. And then I'd like to do some last comments when it's
You
time.
could always put an amendment forward if you like.
Okay, perfect.
Would you like to at this time, or you?
No, I'll wait. And if I don't hear it by the end of the discussion, I'll put an amendment forward at that time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have quite a bit to say about this stable neighborhood study, and so I've got a lot written down because I really want to communicate my thoughts here, because this is a really important issue. To suggest that we haven't really done anything, I disagree with. Maybe in the previous terms we haven't, as council, done what we should, and yes, we did run on campaigns protecting stable neighborhoods. This issue has certainly been a very hot topic and a very defining one for our neighborhoods. And we've heard a lot of strong opinions from both sides, for and against. Finding a balance between the two will never be a perfect science or a perfect math, but we must stand together and make a decision to do something before it's too late as we approach yet another building season. It's a very complex issue, there's no doubt about that, and because there's so many moving parts, it's easy to get caught up in information or just start losing sight of the bigger picture, which is to protect stable neighborhoods, not create a static one. What some of you may not know is stable neighborhoods was first introduced in 2006, called infill zoning bylaw, 13 years ago, for the exact same thing today. That's 13 years of trying to find that perfect science. And finally, here we are today, faced with the same opportunity to make positive change now. My fear is that we keep trying to please everyone, it'll never happen, and monster homes will still be built, overshadowing our small war homes, blocking sun and losing privacy we so much enjoy. We cannot deny that new homes have been torn down in the past 13 years, and it's important that we include them in these changing neighborhoods, as they're now part of that neighborhood. It's not fair to exclude them. What we're trying to do is focus on is mitigating these monster homes in scale and harmonizing a traditional balance while maintaining character. While monster homes is a subjective term, it's obvious to me that a 6,000 square foot home next to a 1,500 square foot bungalow is pretty big and be considered an extreme contrast in scale. Today we've been presented with a solution that meets in the middle of 3,983 square feet. That's a 2,000 square foot drop on a footprint that would only increase by 491 square feet for a 2-story home, based on an average home. I do like that the consultant chose to reward bungalows for a 1.5-story home or a footprint of 35%, whichever one is less. Not everybody wants a 2-story home, and so it would encourage some mixed housing. The consultant's recommendations today are actually more restrictive now than what some presented to the council last May. myself included. Some of you are aware that I did stand alongside with some of the ratepayers, and what's being presented today is actually more in our favor. So to suggest that they haven't gotten anything, Councillor Gardner, is simply untrue. Some still today think what's being presented is still too restrictive. It's tough to visualize what a home of that size would look like. Residents have shared many examples of good builds in these neighborhoods, which to their surprise happen to be around the 3,900 square foot mark. There is one major difference: good architecture. And what some may suggest, show respect for their neighbor. That hasn't always been the case, and we can understand that. What we need to do as council today is decide on a reasonable zoning bylaw changes and focus on good site guidelines in these neighborhoods separately. Good architecture matters and defines what neighborhoods will become as they transition, especially in town park area, as their homes are not built as a subdivision. As a consultant says, it's an eclectic mix of design, heritage, and character. While some might not agree with a methodology or preferred a weighted account, it's important to remember the goal is to protect our stable neighborhoods, not create a static neighborhood. It must allow for investment growth opportunity. And I feel this report has allowed for that growth. I give example of my own home, of a 1-bedroom bungalow. With my garage, my current footprint is 1,530 square feet. If an individual came and chose to tear down my home and build an even 2-story home, there would be an additional 460 square feet of growth opportunity. That's a reasonable footprint to allow. But let's look at the many other positives that this report has brung us. I am impressed. This was not included on the consultant's report. This is something that our staff...
Councillor, you got time.
5 minutes? Can I continue on?
If you want to start, if no one else wants to speak, I will give you your second time. Any other comments, questions? You've spoken once, so has Councillor Humphreys and Councillor Gillan. Anyone else for the first time? Seeing none, Councillor Gillan, your floor is yours for a second time.
So let's look at the other positive opportunities that's been presented in this report, such as increased side yards and rear yard setbacks to address the irregular lot sizes and overshadowing neighbors. That is amazing. I love that. That's what we're trying to avoid, this overshadowing of the neighbors. The max peak roof heights on accessory buildings and various roof types. These are great victories. We can't lose sight of that and shouldn't be overlooked. These standards still need to be met. And we also need to take into account that this is a maximum. Not everybody's going to come in, tear down a home, and build to that max. With that being said, the zoning bylaws being presented today I find are reasonable and offer a balance to both sides. The bylaws presented would support many policy objectives of the Planning Policy Act, the Growth Plan, the York Regional Official Plan, and our official plan. I believe the bylaw recognizes that local context and character is important, and that long-term economic prosperity is supported by encouraging a sense of place and promoting a well-designed built form, including building type, height, and scale. After 13 long years, 13, I'm pleased with these proposed changes that's been presented to council. And I want to protect these stable neighborhoods moving forward, not create a static one. Let's do something about this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gillan. Councillor Humphreys, second time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible at this time to put an amendment in to exclude, Mr. Mayor, just thank you for that, Councillor Gillan. That was very good, and I know it's lots of passion. Lots of history there. Thank you. I just wanted to ask at this point if I have an opportunity to remove 2 outlying areas, if that's possible, if there's the will of council.
You can always put an amendment on.
I'll put them on, and free to. We talked about them last week. The Royal Road residents, but I'd also like to include Councillor, Mr. Mayor, your comments at the end. In the motion that we had last week, I'm sure we have that to allow for bungalows, built at the current rate today. However, should a two-story be built there, it falls on the new, if this passes this evening, the new bylaw.
Mr. Clerk, do you have something?
I think it's ready from last week, if that's okay.
Is that the one you're talking
Yes.
about, Councillor Humphreys? Linda, can you get that up on the screen, please?
I just wanted to bring it out here this evening if it's possible, and we can vote it down. I just wanted to put it on the table since we
Before you
talked about it.
speak, I'll ask for a second or
Oh,
once
sorry,
it goes
sure,
up on the
thanks.
screen.
Yep.
Thanks, Councillor.
But I'd also like to add one more property on there. And we can vote it down. Just want to put it forward. Very lots of passion. Did an awesome job. No, they shouldn't be. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And
Okay, can I get a second
yeah,
for
if
this?
anyone would like to second this.
Councillor Gardner? Councillor Humphreys?
Just to speak to this very quickly, these are a number of lots that aren't quite similar to, just in terms of the large size, that they should be removed from this area. Although, we're still worried about monster homes, large homes, 2 stories. Mr. Mayor brought forward a great scenario that should it be a bungalow that's being willing 70, 80, 100-foot lot bungalow going to the current bylaw would be fine. If they were to move to 2-story, that if we pass this evening, that it would not exceed the 2-story size. I just thought this was fair. I've driven these areas often, and I just feel that this one fits. And I have 3 other properties, but I don't know if it's appropriate to do it this time, Mr. Mayor.
I would suggest you make maybe a second amendment.
Second amendment? Okay, perfect. That's all I have to say about these. We talked about them last week.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the amendment? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we would need to add to this amendment the exact parameters of the exemption. It's not clear here. This is only if a bungalow is built. The maximum square footage may be used only for the housing type of a bungalow. I think it needs actually to be right in the amendment to make it clear.
But Councillor, I think it's for 1-story dwelling, which I believe includes a bungalow.
From the maximum.
Mr. Waters, would you?
From the maximum. I think we say, but we have to say that it doesn't make sense to me, from the maximum building footprint. We have to say something like, for the maximum building footprint to be used. I don't know, Mr. CEO, you're better at this than I am.
Well, Councillor, I believe that this is, staff have written this up, and this is what they feel is they're comfortable with.
That will
moving
do it?
forward. And this will do what's being asked for,
Okay.
so I would leave it to them, considering if we consider and wordsmith this all night, I don't think we're gonna get something better than staff.
No, but
presented
it
us.
does have to be clear to anybody reading the bylaw. So,
Well, the bylaw will come back with this. This
In
is just
plain-
asking staff to
in plain
develop the bylaw.
in plain language, if you build a bungalow, you can use the maximum square footage. Okay.
Okay. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand, there might be a need on this street, and I can't disagree. But, Councillor Thompson made a recommendation last week to have a more comprehensive study after, hopefully the stable neighborhood motion goes through, and just have a more comprehensive examination of all the neighborhoods. And I suspect that there's more than one street that may require an exemption if we're using, this street as a benchmark. So, I'm not going to be in favor of the amendment, only because I think, there's no immediate rush at this moment. I think we can take a little bit of time and do a more detailed examination and see if there are other streets that require an exemption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gartner, second. Is there anyone else for the first time on the amendment? Councillor Gartner, second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think planning could have a look, but I don't think that there's any other area. There may be areas in town that might have one lot or maybe two lots, but this is a distinct pocket of properties. I don't think we can get into exempting a lot here and a lot there. I think this is a unique, it's just a unique pocket. I guess that describes it best.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, if this amendment carries, those properties would still be zoned R3 as they are today?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Yes.
So they would still follow under all those zoning provisions that are currently in place today?
That's correct. And also the ones that are being proposed through stable neighborhoods, notwithstanding the maximum building height would be for a bungalow only, the exemption from that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, you've spoken twice, Councillor Gartner. Mr. Waters, I'll ask the question. Could someone build a bungalow or a one-story building that could reach 10 feet in height?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess anything's possible if you engineer it properly, but I don't see that happening.
Okay, thank you. So I guess it could possibly happen, but it's very unlikely. Yes. I'll call a vote to the amendment. That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. Someone on the floor? Mr. Clerk? Councillor Humphreys, you still have the floor? You have 1:30 left?
Fast. This is my second time. Okay. I have something I do need to say, but just really quickly, now I'm under pressure. Okay, so there are three properties, 107, 109, 111 Metcalf Street, that would like to be removed from here. We've talked about this several times. They're asking, although it doesn't make a difference, I know very much at this point, they're across from Attridge Lumber, the GO Train, industrial behind them. They've all signed letters. They'd like to be excluded, and they don't understand why the house directly across from the GO Station corner is excluded from that. It just seems like it's a little anomaly, a little pocket that probably shouldn't have been. That's it, quick, because I have only 30 seconds.
So what's the amendment?
To remove them. Just to remove them from the
To
study.
remove
107, 109, 111 Metcalf.
107, 109, 111 Metcalf
Yes.
from the stable
From the
neighborhood
stable
study?
neighborhoods, yeah. Please, I'm
Would
running
someone
out
like
of
to
time.
second that? Would someone like to second that?
If nobody wants to second it, that's fine.
Councillor Thompson?
Can you stop the clock?
We're on the amendment, so you got a little bit left on your originals when we come back, but very little. Speak to your amendment, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's just a little bit of again, an oddity in the whole environment. I do understand that there's still going to have to be some zoning changes for this little pocket as well. But when you drive by, I mean, this has been a really intense, focused study. It just appears that this area just doesn't seem to fit with with Attridge Lumber, with the GO Train, with the, the different manufacturers behind them. And then again, the corner building not being part of it just doesn't seem, it almost feels like they were supposed to be and somehow weren't. I don't know. I could be just, it's just what I think is probably not at all accurate, but in terms of being forgotten, they probably put there on purpose because they do fit with the other side of the street and across the street. But it just seems that this pocket, you know, they've been asking for a long time to be excluded. They're asking if we would consider that this evening. If not, I understand it's the will of council, but I wanted to bring it forward in case anyone else has that type of support for these 3 homes.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Any comments or questions to the amendment?
No,
Councillor
let's vote.
Gardner.
Councillor Humphreys is right. This has been before us a couple of times anyway, and I don't know if they came forward when we were looking at the comprehensive zoning bylaw. Council has said no a couple of times. Maybe if we were going to be looking at this, instead of bringing it as an amendment at the last minute, we would look at it in a more fulsome way as how it might affect the neighborhood if this was done. Is that fair? So could it be then, Councillor Thompson seconded it, that these properties be looked at for possible removal from the study area, and a report be provided to council? Are you okay with that?
So, Council, Mr. Waters.
To you, Mr. Mayor, I think there is validity in removing the lands from stable neighborhoods because given their proximity, I've got it on Google Earth right here, so I'm looking at them right now. They are a bit of an outcrop on their own, and the likelihood that they get redeveloped for housing, single-family housing, is pretty slim, in my opinion. However, we have to remember that the region is undergoing MTSA planning for Aurora GO Station. We have reached out to them and advised them that we would like these properties included as part of the MTSA planning that they're undertaking now at the regional level. So I suspect it's only a matter of time before they get included in that area, and maybe some additional properties as well to make a proper block for redevelopment purposes.
Could you,
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Councillor Gardner, did you still?
could you say what an MTSA program?
Major Transit Service Area, Station Area. Thank you.
Thank you. So we might take these 4 houses out of the whole mix and zone them a major transit
No.
area?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the first step would be to identify the boundaries of an MTSA or major transit station area. Second step would be apply the appropriate development rights, densities, coverages, heights. That will be undertaken as a next stage of planning once the region has identified the MTSA. My only comment would be you probably should leave it in for now, but the appropriate communication has been submitted to the region to consider it for inclusion within the MTSA.
Councillor Gardner?
Well, if this is being looked at in a wider, as a part of a wider picture, and the process has already started, I would think that we should do what Mr. Waters said, just leave it in and leave it to that process and not.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Thompson?
Just through to Mr. Waters, just following up on your comments. So what you're essentially saying is that you find it doubtful that they would be redeveloped for a single housing, that because of its proximity to the GO train station, because of the desire for intensification through these MTSAs, if an application came forward, it would most likely be tied into any development along Bursey Street and be townhouses, condominiums, in all likelihood.
Mr. Waters?
Councillor Thompson is quite correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Gallo?
And just to follow up on that, if that were to happen, it would come before council because the current zoning would never allow any of that anyway. So whether we do
Correct.
this or not, these properties will be coming before council regardless.
And just to reiterate, so Mr. Waters, regardless of whether we remove them from stable neighborhood, left it in stable neighborhood, it would need to come for an amendment, correct? And that's what Councillor Gallo was getting at. Correct, thank you. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to clarify then, so we know that an amendment would be necessary. So if we took it out of stable neighborhoods, there would be no benefits, even in terms of the timelines, because for the region to come back with their newly drawn map, MTSA map, you're saying that there'd be no benefit to any potential developer or purchaser of those properties.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe there's a benefit to taking it out of stable neighborhoods, because whatever is in stable neighborhoods in terms of proposed zoning is not going to be sufficient enough from a density and use perspective. They're going to look for higher densities on these properties and likely consolidating them into a development block at the end of the day.
Councillor Kim?
So right now, with the R3, the way it's zoned, it's ground level housing, which excludes potentially stacked townhomes and anything more dense. So if by being in stable neighborhoods, it's not going to make it even more challenging for an amendment on the zoning.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there needs to be a basis for the higher densities or a different built form than an R3. So in that case, they would have to apply for a rezoning amendment, potentially an amendment to the secondary plan that's existing as well, because I'm not sure at this point what the designation is at the secondary plan level as well. So they may be an official plan amendment also. I should note that through the MTSA planning, those sort of higher level development rights will be assigned through that process, and they'll have to likely come in for a rezoning amendment if they're within the MTSA area to take advantage of the higher densities.
Councillor Kim?
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, then until the region comes back with their MTSA densities, even if someone were to come in next month or 2 months from now and apply for a zoning amendment, it wouldn't pass because we're still waiting on the new MTSA density requirements or recommendations. Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would determine it would be premature at this point in time.
Councillor Kim?
Can you clarify what do you mean by premature?
Well, I think it's important to wait to see what happens with the regional planning for the MTSA to see where the boundary is and whether they include it. And at that point, they can decide whether they want to move forward or not with any kind of redevelopment scenario.
Councillor Kim?
Okay, so for a real life example, if someone were to come next week and apply for stacked townhouses, what would happen?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would determine what the existing designation is in the secondary plan, and then what the existing zoning is, and see what they need to do from a planning process point of view in order to achieve what they would like to from a development perspective. So, any landowner has the right to make an application on the Planning Act. So, I mean, they can't be prevented from doing that. But until we have some certainty regarding the MTSA boundary, it's probably premature to advance something like that at this point.
Councillor Kim, and we're starting to stray a little bit, but
Okay, we got it. Thank you.
thank you, Councillor Kim. Any other comments or questions? I'll just say one thing. I mean, and this is the problem that we're running into, is that we're going to start looking at individual properties and saying, let's take them out of the stable neighborhood study. I mean, at the end of the day, these properties, we always talk about meeting the intent of our official plan. How many times have I heard that around this table? These properties within our official plan, in the maps in our official plan, they're part of the stable neighborhood. So then why are we removing them? We're looking at protecting stable neighborhoods. They're within the mapping, within our official plan. From my perspective, they stay in. They're part of the stable neighborhood. Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I agree with those comments 100%. I wholeheartedly support our OP, but if you drive by, you'll know they were included, but maybe they were part of that OP even 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's just how it's evolved in the area. It just doesn't match, but I hear you 100%. So it's the will of council how we vote at this moment, and I'll go with how the majority votes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll call the vote. On the amendment? That fails. Back to the main motion.
One comment.
Councillor Humphreys, you have,
1 second.
how much? 12 seconds.
Okay, really quickly, through you, Mr. Mayor. I normally never abuse my time, right? So I just wanted to say this has been a difficult, long process. I want to thank again the residents and everyone around the table, staff, for working so hard. I know it's probably not what any of us really, really would have loved to have, but I do believe it's going to provide that those homes that we see that don't fit in our areas and that do cause those problems that have really got us here. So I just wanted to thank everyone for hanging in there for the process. It doesn't mean we stop here, but my mayor is telling me to stop, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Just being fair to everyone.
I agree.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on number 4, the urban design guidelines. If we move forward with that, is that something that staff is doing internally through you to Mr. Waters, or are we getting a consultant to do that?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Planning Partnership was also retained to draft urban design guidelines as part of the Stable Neighborhoods review. So they have a draft that was, I believe, presented at the March 27th public planning meeting. They're in draft form at the moment.
So we've paid for this, and it's basically finalizing the guidelines, and it'll be reported back, and then we can make a decision at that point to whether we decide to go with it or not, or tweak it, or whatever we want to do. So at this point, I don't see why we would not move forward with that, because we're not making any decisions other than we've already paid for it. Let's see what he comes up with, and then make a decision once we have it beforehand. So I wasn't sure why some were not wanting that to move forward, at least to take a look at them, and you can disagree with it once you see them. Other than that, was it the best process that we took? Probably not, but I guess we learned from it. Are we as close as we could have gotten? Probably. Would I have done some things differently? I think so. Can this be tweaked? I also think it can. I agree with Councillor Thompson and others that a more comprehensive look at them to see whether or not there are some areas that we could perhaps remove. But I'm all in favor of moving forward and putting this behind us and just getting it done.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. Just
First.
briefly.
First time, sorry.
It is. Last
So
week I
many
spoke
amendments.
about my concerns with regards to the urban design guidelines, and I still share those same concerns. However, I had some follow-up conversations with Mr. Waters, and certainly heard from others as well. And so, as Councillor Gallo just mentioned, I'm fine to reserve judgment until that report comes back. Mr. Waters has assured me that they won't be policies, that they will be guidelines, and so I look forward to see how he's going to implement that in the final report. And so, for now, I'll support it.
She spoke once? Just once? Councillor Gardner, second time.
Well, excuse me, as Councillor Gallo said, we've paid for this, and I think we should see what it says. I'm certainly not in favor of deciding the color of a person's house or whether they have the ability to use mirrored walls on the outside. But I think there are some things that are important in design guidelines. So I would like to see if there are any things that we consider important in those design guidelines.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? I just wanted to make one comment. I think I pretty much said what I had to say last week on this issue. I just wanted to comment back on a comment that was made at the table in regard to that we all campaigned on protecting our stable neighborhoods, and I agree. Now, I don't know exactly what each and every one of you said. I know what I said. I said it was a three-pronged approach that we need to take. We need to implement site plan applications for single-dwelling homes. We need to make some changes to the zoning to meet the intent of the OP, which I believe we're doing. And lastly, we need to implement design guidelines, and that's what we're doing. So I believe that this, moving forward, will better protect our stable neighborhoods and bring it in line with our OP. So I'm in favor of moving forward. I'll call the vote. Number 4 is going to be separate. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 5 together. And this was moved by... Okay, moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Thompson. This one was. So I'll call the vote. That carries. Next, we have number 4. It's the same mover and seconder? Yes. Call a vote. That carries. That brings that item to an end. Mr. Clerk, did we want to try to get the motion in, or should we take the break?
I think if you go for the motion, you go for the whole thing.
We'll do the motion? Does everyone want to just keep going? Plow through? All right. Councillor Gilliland. Move as is. Councillor Humphrey, second. Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. When John Westway was built, there was no condos, no parks, schools, community events. Even the senior center wasn't there. But over the years, there's been a tremendous increase of pedestrians, traffic events, and new builds. In addition, we've also received notice of new rezoning of even more residential housing at the northeast corner of John Westway. So even more traffic, more pedestrians. And I don't know if some of you guys have received it, but that's northwest corner, and it's going to be, I think, apartment building. So there'll be a lot of residents there. I've heard from many residents their concern with the speed and sightline issues around the bend associated with it. I've also spoken with Miss McHale, and she's also received complaints from residents on Amber Hill Way about speed and safety of kids who can't cross the street safely. I've also spoken to staff who support speed reduction on recommendation due to these circumstances, demographic, and design of the road. In doing so, I believe this issue needs to have a two-pronged approach solution. 1, to reduce speed to 40 kilometers an hour to meet all other residential streets, and 2, to address the sightline issues. Local residents and visitors have shared their concern of sightline issues around the bend, not only by driving north and south, but also exiting Town Hall, Amber Hill Way, and the Tim Hortons Plaza. This simply is an accident waiting to happen. I'd like to direct staff to provide a report on additional traffic calming measures to address these sightline issues, such as a 3-way stop at Amber Hill Way. The safety in our neighborhood is a priority, and there's a high concentration of secondary school students walking or driving to school, seniors and residents with accessibility requirements, residents in general, and tourists. The fact that we have a sign posted saying seniors is an indication we need to be more aware. I say we can do better to keep our community safe, and I hope that I can have the support from council to move this motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilliland. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Gillen, for bringing it forward. I certainly support the motion. Just had a quick question, and I'm not sure who best to direct it to, but with regards to all residential streets being 40 kilometers per hour, do we not have any that are 50? And if that's the case, why did we ever make John Westway 50 in the first place?
I think I see Mr.
I see everybody
Ellen's
pointing to somebody
pointing
else.
but considering he's new, I might,
All right.
you know, Mr. Councillor Thompson, I might try to answer that. My understanding is it was considered a throughway at the time, and that's why it was 50. It wasn't necessarily considered a residential street at the time.
Oh. And then when they built all the
And
condominium
the
units.
speed limit never changed.
Because when I first saw the motion, I thought to myself, well, you know, what's Mavernack, what's Conover? There are certainly, those are the sort of major thoroughfares on that part of town, and they're all 40, and so I certainly support the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this? Councillor Gallo.
Being a resident of the neighborhood for 23
Please
years,
tell us your thought.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not sure what the solution is. I think it's still to put our heads together, but definitely sightline issues and definitely speed issues on up and down the street. I challenge any other street in the town of Aurora that has that amount of density of residents in that strip from Wellington all the way up to, what is it? Hollingview, I think it is, without a stop. Oh, actually, well, with an activated stop for pedestrians. So I'm happy you brought it along, and I'm look forward to finding a solution.
Any other comments or questions? All right, call the vote. That carries. Regional report. Moved. Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor Humphreys. Comments or questions on the regional report? Councillor Gilliland.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to say it was a good report. It was a great report.
You know what? I wish I could take credit for writing it, but I can't. It's written by staff at the region, so I will pass along. I will pass along your thanks for the great report that they did.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
I don't know if I need to wait to new business. On page 3, they're talking about how they opposed Bill 108, and they sent a letter in, etc. Anyway, it's passed, and I'm wondering if this council is going to have a discussion on the DC, the environmental, and the heritage component. Because, for example, the DCs now, instead of getting them all at once, I think it's over a 10-year period. So that'll be a financial matter. Thank you, Mr. CAO.
Well, and before I give it to CAO, I mean, he's probably going to say the same thing I'm going to say. Maybe. I might be wrong. But we should wait till the regulations come in from the province, and then staff will be bringing us a report as far as what each act, how the impacts will be through those regulations. So until those regulations come out, we don't necessarily know the full impact of the bill.
Fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the regional report? Actually, I forgot to ask. Mr. CO, is that good enough? It's perfect. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. I just wanted to get you saying it was perfect on my.
Trained you well.
Councillor Gardner? That carries. New business. I will start on my right. Councillor Gilliland, anything? New business-wise?
I guess to Mr. Natarosny, if there's any additional information on the new trailer. I know that we spoke earlier, and I was wondering if maybe you could share that information with the public we had spoken about earlier.
Could you
About the accessibility trailer, the washroom?
the accessibility trailer, Mr. CO?
Yes, through Mr. Mayor. The last we heard that trailer has been transferred to Markham Fair, and there was no other opportunity given to any other partners to participate in that. It was just sort of done by the Council of Witchard-Stouffville. So it would seem, at least at this point, that it's out of our hands and belongs to another group, and we can certainly get in contact with them and see if they'd make it available for a more reasonable rental. But right now, we have no information that suggests that's what's going to happen.
Councillor Gilliland?
So it's my understanding that perhaps any of the municipalities who contributed to the trailer, the Markham Fair would award a preferred rate, but we're still unsure what that preferred rate might be, but it might be something that we could work with as a town in order to still use the trailer.
And I believe Mr. Seals, that's what he mentioned, is that they're going to reach out and try to find out what that preferred
Preferred
rate
rate
is,
is.
and if we will be getting usage out of it. So
Perfect.
we
All
will
right.
update you at a further time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys, new business. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner, new business.
Yes. I asked a question last week about 2 items on the accessibility advisory agenda. I believe Ms. Van Leeuwen has an answer.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, could we get that question again?
It
Just so
was
we're all-
about the closed captioning, and the other was talking about financial changes to, I can't remember if it was Ontarians with disabilities. Ms. Van Leeuwen is going to remind me.
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the closed captioning, there was a misunderstanding in terms of what the committee was recommending. The committee was actually recommending to remove the closed captioning from the multi-year accessibility plan. It was placed in the plan in 2010 for implementation in 2019, and the committee, I understand, had a conversation that they didn't feel there wasn't enough value to provide that service, as we've never received a complaint. There didn't seem to be concern. There doesn't seem to be many people that view our streaming. So that was the recommendation, and it's an operational budget item. It was a $15,000 spend per year over year. So that was the closed captioning portion of the conversation of the committee. With respect to changes to the social services system, the ministry has announced that there's budget cuts to two programs, one being Ontario Works and the other being, I have it written down here, I think it's the Ontario Disability Support Program. So the details of what the cuts will be to those programs is uncertain at this time, but staff will continue to monitor and review this and can come back with an information report in the future.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. And the second thing would be to Mr. Downey. He's been so lucky we haven't paid any attention to him tonight. On the northeast corner of Orchard Heights and Whispering Pine, we have a trail, and there are some very determined young men who want to disrespect the area. You know what I'm talking about, because they want to build something for their enjoyment. So I imagine this happens all over town, or has happened in the past. The residents are very upset, and also it seems to be a safety issue because the boys are using it. What are they using it for?
Councillor Gardner, I got a puzzled look, and I see a couple of councillors have a puzzled
Yeah,
look. What is it
well,
that they're building?
because
What is it that they're building?
It's some sort of, Mr. Downey's going to
Okay,
explain it
Mr.
to us.
Downey, please.
Through Mr. Mayor, I don't know when you last talked to the resident. The last email I heard from the resident, they were satisfied with
Okay.
the methods that we took. So we went in and put some signage up. We also talked to some of the kids. They were using it for BMX bikes and stuff like that. So they felt it was inappropriate use and it was doing some damage to the area. since we put the signage up, although they did rip the sign down, they have not been coming back. And so the last email I had, which was late last week, the resident was quite happy with the action that was taken. So I haven't heard back from them recently, unless you've heard from them recently today.
No,
or
I have
whatever.
not. So that's great. So they've moved somewhere else to bother some other people.
Perhaps.
So you'll probably get an email soon about that. Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Anything else? New business? No? Councilor Thompson? Councilor Gallo, new business?
Just on a note on that last subject, that girls also ride BMX bikes and they also cause problems to people. It's not just the boys. Just wanted to note.
Thank you for adding that, Councilor Gallo. We appreciate it. Councilor Kim, you had something you want to add?
Yes, thank you. Through you to Councillor Gardner, I recall Councillor Gallo a month or so ago inquired about the guidelines behind donors behind Lake Sequoia Conservation Authority. Just wondering whether you had a chance to, or contributors to the Lake Sequoia Conservation Authority. I was just wondering whether you uncovered anything at all, or.
Councilor Gardner?
It's very difficult to actually get that information. There's many ways that they receive their money, but a lot of it is from developers. I believe that was the crux of the question.
Councilor Kim?
So I thought we were going to get some kind of like guidelines as to who can donate and just the rough guidelines or parameters behind who can donate. There are no policies within the LSRCA.
Find out for you, but now that Bill 108 has come down, their funding has been curtailed significantly, and they will be looking for even more donors, and they'll also probably be coming back to the municipalities as well.
Thank you, Councilor Gallo. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I also did a little bit of digging, and I ended up getting their finally getting their financial statements. So I can forward those to all of you, and
I think we would all appreciate that. Yeah.
and there also is I guess a sort of like a foundation part of the Conservation Authority, and that's the area where all the developers kind of contribute and buy tables and do all of that. It's somewhat separate than their normal operations. So, but I'll forward that to you.
Thank you. So we'll move to PSAs. Councilor Gallo.
Thank you. Town of Aurora and TD Bank Group are celebrating 5 years of the Town of Aurora's Concert in the Park series with music ranging from rock and roll and Celtic to country and more. There will be 9 weeks of live entertainment every Wednesday at Town Park from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. throughout July and August. The first concert is on Wednesday, July 3rd. Additional performances will take place during intermissions. For more information on concerts in the park, please visit aurora.ca/summer concerts.
Thank you, Councilor Gallo. Councilor Thompson.
As we all know, June is Recreation and Parks Month. This is an exciting way to increase awareness of the value and important benefits of recreation and parks for individuals, families, and communities. For special activities, tips and ideas on things to do in Aurora to celebrate June, download the calendar loaded with activities for each day. Hard copies can be picked up at the Town Hall and recreation facilities. Activities include Zumba in the park, splash pads, basketball, rock climbing, leisure swimming, public skate, and so much more. For a full listing of the activities, visit aurora.ca/recreation parks month.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was at a wonderful concert on Sunday for the Aurora Community Band. I think it may be the best deal in town for $15 and $10 if you're a senior. And it's really an uplifting experience, so I recommend it to everybody. They have concerts. Actually, they're going to be at the Farmers Market on the 22nd. So this Saturday, we're celebrating Pride Month right now. And this past week, Mayor Maracas and I and various other people raised the flag. And as always, it is very good to support diversity and inclusivity in our community. So the parade is Saturday. The first year in Newmarket, I was the only one who was there. Last year, we had the mayor, Councillor Abel, and myself. So hopefully this year, we will have more people from council out, and it's quite a happening. And I also like to thank
Ms. Mackenzie.
our wonderful Miss Mackenzie Smith for organizing it last year, and I believe is organizing it this year, and is a very strong supporter of Pride generally, and sometimes goes to very interesting events. Anyway, and I'm sure if I haven't seen it, but I think it will probably get a notice of where we can meet on Saturday, the time, everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll just add one thing to that is if councillors haven't yet, go pick up your shirt from Ms. Mackenzie Smith. It's a shirt that says "Our community includes everyone." And so it's a great job by Ms. Mackenzie Smith with coming up with that shirt. So go pick it up if you get a chance upstairs. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you. We're so grateful to our partners at Desjardins for offering free recreational activities for Aurorans. Be sure to check out the schedule of free programming by visiting aurora.ca/Desjardins Days. And also there will be next Tuesday, June 18th at 7 p.m. Screenagers at Wellington Public School. That's at 125 Wellington Street West. $10 at the door, cash only for grade 5s and up. This movie is an amazing opportunity for parents to come together and learn more about technology, screens, and how they affect our children, families, and us. What are some risks, challenges that people face, and how we can come up with a fair and healthy solution for the sake of our children's health and well-being and balance for family life. So encourage everyone to check that out.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you. Make plans to celebrate Canada's birthday in Aurora. The festivities start at 10 a.m. with the parade on Yonge Street and continues at 11 a.m. in Lambert Wilson Park for fun, entertainment, and of course, fireworks. For more information, please visit aurora.ca/Canada Day. It's going to be great.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. The splash pads at Aurora Town Park, Trent Park, Ada Johnson Park are now open for operations between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., 7 days a week. Splash pads are not supervised by the town. One thing I wanted to add was not to forget that we do have a participation event that's happening from May 31st to June 16th. We're currently 5th in Ontario. We'd like to be at least in the top 5, so download that app and log your minutes of activity, and let's get us there. Lastly, go Raptors.
Thank you. And then actually starting yesterday, York Region Transit expanded the service area for the Mobility on Demand and Aurora Go pilot service. So if anyone's looking at avoiding the hassles of driving and parking at the Go station and want to rely on the transit instead, they can sign up and check everything out at yrt.ca/Aurora Go sign up. It'll have the new area that's being added on, and they'll see if they qualify for the expanded pilot. So looking forward to that. Obviously, it's working very well, and we're all quite happy with how it's working so far. So with that being said, that is all for today. We got our confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Gallo, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Call the vote. Carries. A motion to adjourn. Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Bam. We are adjourned.